Hi, I'm Danger Dan Jers, the host and GM of the D&D Real Play podcast, D & Dark. Join us on Wednesdays for an absurd, over-the-top comedy horror adventure, starring some of history's most infamous monsters.
I'm Ben Magnet. I play Mary Frankenstein, our barbarian.
I am Daniel Cruz. I am playing Imhotep the Mummy, our cleric.
I'm Jordan, and I play Larry Talbot, a lycanthropic warlock.
I am Grayson, playing Jet Griffin, the Invisible Man, the party's rogue.
I am Aaron. I play the Phantom of the Opera, our bard.
For more information, go to dndarkpodcast.com and listen to us anywhere you find podcasts.
Hey everybody, I would like to welcome you to another episode of Pop Culture Gems. This is a series where we talk to amazing creators, artists, cosplayers, voice actors, and so much more. If you like the interviews we do with these terrific guests, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the CFG channel. We also release Pop Culture Gems on all podcast services out there, or go to our main website, confreaksandgeeks.com, to not miss an episode. Today, I am speaking with an incredible talent in the voice acting world. They have done work on several shows like the powerful and prideful Tatsumaki in One Punch Man, the deadly Takezu Musashi Shinmen in Ikitosen, Mizuki in AI The Somnium Files game series, but you most remember her playing your favorite emergency food, Paimon from Genshin Impact. I would like to welcome Corina Boetger to the show. How are you doing, Corina?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I am doing awesome. I'm doing really good now. After all the technical difficulties, I'm finally glad I'm able to talk to you today.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad. I hope you're having an excellent Friday.
Yeah, it's a good Friday. My birds are awake and happy and eating their grapes. Oh, they got grapes. They're very happy.
Their favorite food, I'm assuming.
One of their favorites. It's that. Oh yeah, you heard that happy noise. That and strawberries. They love grapes and strawberries.
Okay. He's like totally content for the rest of the day with that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's get this party started. I just want to know, like, let's get your background story. What is your story? Like, what made you go into the world of voice or in acting?
So I was 5 years old at the time, and I had already basically been a performer, like singing and stuff like that. And my mom was like, "Oh my God, you're a singer. We're gonna have you." Like, I started singing in church by that point already. And then my parents weirdly at 5 let me watch the movie The Mask, which I don't suggest.
At 5?
Yeah. Looking back on that now, I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot of adult themes in this movie. I had no idea. But I really I got obsessed with Jim Carrey. And I went to my parents and I was like, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And my parents were expecting me to say a singer since I was already singing. I was like, I want to be Jim Carrey when I grow up. And they were like, oh, so you want to be an actor like Jim Carrey? And I was like, that's not what I said. I said I want to be Jim Carrey. And you said I could be whatever I wanted to be when I grow up, so I'm going to be Jim Carrey. And they're like, you can't do that. And I mean, there's so many things about this conversation that I'm like, how did my parents not know I was autistic just based off of this conversation alone? It basically, I had a whole meltdown where I had viewed that like my parents had lied to me. And
wow.
That I was upset that I couldn't be Jim Carrey, and how dare they lie to me saying I could be whatever I want to be, since that's not true. And they were like, we didn't mean it like that. And me being autistic, I was like, how else would you mean that then? It was a whole thing. But eventually they got me to calm down, and eventually they got me to they were like, look, you can't be Jim Carrey, but you can be an actor like Jim Carrey. And I basically said through tears, like, okay, fine, I guess that's good enough.
You see, a compromise.
Yeah, a compromise. And so my mom was really instrumental in this whole process, because she was basically the person that was like, okay, if you really want to do this, let's test this out first. She put me in community theater, which, by the way, if you're ever questioning if voice acting is for you, community theater is a really great way to kind of get into acting without spending a whole bunch of money at first, just to see if you like it. Once you know you like it, then spend all the money in the world to try and do it. But if you're just testing it out, community theater, it's right there. It's inexpensive. It's a lot of fun. I had tons of fun doing community theater. I did that. And then I was hooked since day one. My first production was The Wiz, which I am embarrassed to say was mostly white people doing The Wiz.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was bad. I lived in a predominantly white community. Yeah.
So wait, you're telling me that out of all the different shows out there,
we could have just done The Wizard of Oz, but it was specifically The Wiz.
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine that.
It was bad. I was 5 at the time, though, and all I knew was it was just a show about a different version of The Wizard of Oz, not realizing that I had no idea that the movie that The Wiz was actually done with Michael Jackson and everything even existed at the time. So for me, as a 5-year-old, I was like, I get to be a flying monkey? Yes. That's all I've ever wanted to be, and I was hooked since day one. So I told my mom, no, seriously, this is actually what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I don't care what it takes to do it. And she kind of sat down with me, and we had a very good conversation about what this actually entails. If I wanted to pursue this as a career, that I might never be super successful. I might be struggling, because there's a lot of working actors that are not rich and famous. And I think people forget about that you could be a successful actor without being, rich, famous, all that stuff. I point out, me and my boyfriend, when we watch TV, we often point out who the side characters are and how many, normally, it's those people that have maybe a co-starring role. They're in actually tons of shows. They're just not the lead character ever, So we point those people out all the time on other shows that we see them on. And she was like, so that could be the case, that you would never be famous. You might be struggling, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't care. This is what I want to do. I would rather be happy and struggling than rich and famous. That's or even rich in a very stable job. I regret that decision. I'm kidding. I love my job. I really do. But it's not a joke that you are struggling for a long time before you see. Usually, not always. Some people actually hit it off and get their big roles right off the bat, which good for them. But usually that's not the case. And I will say that I've definitely been successful as a working actor since I was 8 years old. I got my first paid gig at 8 years old in Seattle, working in theater. And then I even got my first voiceover job in Seattle right after that, because they actually saw me in that theater show and then was like, we want them to come and do some voiceover for us.
What was your first show what was your first paid gig?
The first show that I ever got paid at, there was casting for a voiceover thing that they were doing, which was it was a promo for a video game that I believe was playing at PAX. It was not a national commercial. Because PAX originated in Seattle, which is funny because now I think PAX in PAX East is bigger than PAX West. Yeah, Boston. Because PAX started in Seattle, but it's bigger in Boston now. But it was a promo that was just gonna play at PAX, and it was for a video game, and I don't remember what the video game was. I do know it was a scary video game, and I do remember one line from it, which was like, the evil hellhound reared its head, and through his smile this is what he said. And then it said something like smoke and ashes, and we were supposed to say it like it was like a jump rope skipping game.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
like, you know, that
Like
type of rhyming.
Like a Grim Tales kind of thing, or
Yeah, that you kind of said in like a rhyme sort of way that you would like play slap hands and or like skip rope to.
Wow.
And yeah, they hired me because they saw me in that paid show, you know. So
that's kind of cool though. I mean, they said, hey, yeah, they're like, hey, that she would be, or they would be the perfect point to play this role in this preview of this upcoming game. So that's actually that's awesome though. So yes. but since then, you've been going from since then you've been just moving and doing different kinds of things. So are you still in Seattle right now, or are you down in Cali or anywhere? Like,
I am in California. There's just so much more opportunity in Los Angeles. And it's funny because like at one point, you know, I was still doing theater in Seattle, and I was kind of like working regularly as an actor in Seattle, but there's literally like really only theater. And so at one point my mom was like, look, you're gonna start growing out of this town at some point. You're doing it, and you're kind of already at 16, or no, younger than that. I think I was 14.
Wow.
You know, you're starting to grow out of this town. We have two choices. Either you can choose to go to Los Angeles and try getting into movies and television, or you can go to New York and go into Broadway. And I was like, but then I'll have to be a dancer, right? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I choose Los Angeles.
It's a 5-minute decision right there.
Yep. Easiest decision of my life, which like I still wish I did more dance classes, but at the time I was also really sick with Crohn's disease, and so doing a lot of physical activity on top of already going to school, and then like after school I would go and work as an actor, or heck, sometimes even during school. My mom would have to pull me out of school a lot for acting because, you know, shows are during the day sometimes.
Yeah.
But you know, at that point it was too much for me to also do dance classes on top of it physically because I was so sick. And at the time, we didn't know what was wrong with me. So at the time, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to Los Angeles. And I, you know, it's kind of morbid, but at 14, when you don't know what's wrong with you and you're really sick like that, you automatically go to the worst place of being like, you know, I might not be on this earth I mean, we're already on this earth for only a short period of time anyway, but mine might be shorter than most. So it is split decision. LA it is, because I don't have the time and the energy to do dance classes and learn how to be a triple threat.
Well, did you?
I now do dance classes, but that's a separate thing.
Well, and I mean, like you're saying, I mean, you seem like you've been on the grind since you were a child on this. But when you do, like, I mean, you knew acting was going to be what you were wanting to do for the rest of your life, like at an early age, super early age. But was there something that made you want to get into voice acting specifically or particularly?
I'd always been interested in voice acting. I think it took me too long to realize that was also a job. Again, autistic. I didn't realize it was actual people behind those voices for the longest time. Which makes sense now. Even though I had already done voiceover by that point, it still didn't click in my head. But like, you know, even down here, when I was already working as an actor down here, I like at that point it was like I'd ask questions about how to get into voiceover, but all of my resources were for on camera, and I did do on camera. Like, you see me in My Name Is Earl as a guest star. I'm a co-star on Glee, Shameless, Desperate Housewives. So like I'm even successful in that. And it was like and I'd always ask questions because I always got told by my teachers, you should really look into voice acting. You should really look like Gary Austin. I love that man. May he rest in peace. He was the biggest supporter in me looking to do voiceover. And I was like, well, Gary, do you know how to get in? And he was like, no, I have no idea. And I was like, great. Because voice acting is, even though it is acting, absolutely is acting, but it is a different avenue of acting, and there is a different process in what to do to make yourself bookable, you know, in that world. It's like, heck, there are agencies out here in Los Angeles that do great for on camera, but they don't even have a voiceover department. And at the time, I was with an agency that didn't have a voiceover department at all. So I literally had no avenue or way of like really knowing, like nobody knew of any classes. And it wasn't until I met a good friend of mine, Jeremy Bloom, who is the son of Steve Bloom. I met that person randomly through a friend, actually, it's so crazy how you meet people. Because when I think about this, I'm like, that's like a 1 in a million chance, 1 in a billion chance even. I met a friend through a American Sign Language class. They had me over at a party, which was Jeremy Bloom's house. And Jeremy Bloom, of course, I then made friends with him. And I told him that I was in acting and stuff like that. And he was like, well, my dad is Steve Bloom. So if you ever have questions about voice acting specifically. And I was like, yes, please. I have so many questions.
So wait, like coincidentally, when that happened, your slight in was talking to Steve Bloom directly in on all this?
Steve freaking Bloom.
Wow.
Me, nobody.
Just from a party. I mean, that's crazy. That's awesome. It's that whole that saying of like luck is being ready when the opportunity presents itself, you know. And by that point I was already a trained actor, so I at least had the acting down. It was just a matter of finding my way into this specific niche genre, because it is a different world. And so yeah, he had me sit down and talk with his dad, which to this day I thank Jeremy like for my whole entire career at this point, because he made it happen, just because he let me talk with his dad. And Jeremy, if you're listening, I love you. So yeah, he told me, you know, oh, these are the classes that you need to take, so that way you can get in front of these people and learn how to make yourself a demo and get all of these stuff done and get in with the right acting coaches, get in with the right casting and stuff like that. And because it really is a lot of knowing who to reach out to in this industry. And you know, if your teacher is mostly doing on camera, they know how to get you into on camera. And like all acting classes are good to start with, but at some point, if you want to specifically get into voiceover, then you need voiceover specific classes to then learn that world. And so yeah, that's kind of how it happened. Wow, that is incredible. I love that story. That is great. And and I mean you have been super busy at work as of late. I mean, like with the most recently, a lot of different kinds of cool stuff that's been coming out that you've been a part of. I mean, is there something that you like to do to unwind from the booth to relax?
I like to spend time with my birds. I play a lot of video games. I also knit and crochet a lot. I really love knitting. It's a really great way of like kind of feeling at peace and concentrating on something that isn't acting for once.
Oh, nice.
And I even started like a little knitting group with my friends. We meet every Wednesday to just sit and knit. And I've taught some people how to knit too. Just because I was like, I want to start a knitting group, but I probably don't have a lot of friends that know how. So you know what? I'll just teach them. And I did.
You made your own.
I made them.
You created them. It's like, hey, I created
made
this.
them myself, yeah.
What kind of games do you usually like to play?
Oh, right now I'm playing Monster Hunter Rise.
Yeah.
But I do like a lot of first-person shooters. In fact, there's another timeline where I actually did take up my. I played a lot of Halo back in the day, and I got offered to actually join a professional Halo.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got that offer, and I was like, "That sounds cool." And then they were like, "Yeah, you have to like practice like 12 hours a day though." And I was like, "Oh no, I'm an actor.
12
I can't
hours.
do that." And they were like, "You're so good already, though. If you actually practice that much, you could be a professional, no problem." And because I was keeping up with them, I wasn't as good as them. They were pro players, but they just liked me because they thought I was funny and I was okay. But they were like, "You're like, we're no joke. Like, you're pretty good for not being a professional and actually keeping up with us. So, like, if you actually practice with us that as much as we practice, like, you could do this." And I was like, "Nah, I'm an actor." There's an alternate universe where I said yes, though.
Oh, like, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there definitely is. But man, like, I don't know. Like, that doesn't even sound appealing. 12, like, you love Halo. You love playing Halo. But then
I don't think I love Halo enough to play it 12 hours a day, though. Oh
exactly. It's like, because you're at a point now, it's like you love playing your favorite game, but then now it's not a matter of you enjoying playing it. You're playing it so you can, like, break the game in your mind to be like, oh, okay, when you're looking at that mountain, you're looking at the mountain. But if you're looking at a professional level, it's like, oh no, this is like so and so degrees up to the northwest, and this gun is not strong enough to hit at that velocity and stuff. So no, you don't want to break the game, you just want to enjoy it,
Yeah.
So
it is funny though, because how Zach and I became friends was Zach Aguilar. Like, because I've known Zach Aguilar for a while, but it was Halo that actually was like, "You play Halo? So do I." I almost went pro, and he was like, "Wait, what?"
That is a cool
There's
story.
an alternate universe where I'm a pro Halo player.
What would your, like? Do you have like a Halo tag name that you would use or anything like that?
See, I'm so, like, okay, so when I was a kid, when I started playing Halo was the original Halo. I was like 12 years old. Because I am an infinite, I'm an immortal eldritch god, so you don't know what age I am. But at the time I was 12 years old, and it was like, you need a gamer tag, and I was like, okay, well, I really like Pokemon. And at the time, Pokemon just came out with Fire Red version. And also I'm a redhead, so I'm a ginger. And so my tag at the time was Fire Ginger Red, which changed to Red Ginger Fire when I later on. I don't remember why it changed. I think somebody already took Fire Ginger Red for like the paid something or whatever that happened. But yeah, it changed into Red Ginger Fire later on, but it was Fire Ginger Red at first. So I'd probably just stick with Red Ginger Fire just because that's still my online name right now.
That is
like
awesome.
So if you ever see a Red Ginger Fire, that's me you're playing with. And if I sucked that day, well, that was my boyfriend playing on my account.
So you'll take the wins, but you won't take the L's. that would be.
I will say he even says that I carry him when it comes to first-person shooters because we play Overwatch and Apex together, and yeah, I carry him pretty hard.
That is so great. I love it. Yeah. So now, like, you kill it also in singing in karaoke in karaoke, because I have seen your videos on YouTube. Shameless plug, go check her out on Corina Boetger on YouTube. It's just really cool. And like, what are some of the go-to karaoke songs that you like to perform?
I love I Want to Dance with Somebody. That's always a good crowd pleaser, especially when it's an older crowd or the karaoke place doesn't really have a lot of newer music. I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston is amazing and such a good song. And it's a fun one. it also shows off my range because I can belt pretty high. Again, professional singer, you know.
Would you say soprano or like tenor?
I'm a soprano, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm a specifically, if you're talking about opera, I'm a coloratura soprano, which is a specific type of like resonance. There's like a color of like, which by the way, coloratura sopranos I think are kind of overrated. Maybe it's because I am one, but if you get a coloratura alto, oh my god, those people do not get enough love, and their voices are like the voices of angels. Anyways, beyond that, but yeah, that's one of them. But also, I like any musicals. I am so into. Like, if somebody actually knows how to do the song, I really love. Take me for what I am. Is that the name of the song? I don't know. It's from Rent.
Oh, okay. Like I'm not familiar with that.
But also, oh gosh, of course, Wicked is an easy one for me to, throw out there if I really want to show off and be a jerk.
You always have to show off in karaoke because they'll be like, "Oh my god, I didn't know you could sing like that." Like, I mean, always.
You don't always have to,
but it's fun.
It's more fun though when people are being a certain way and you're like, I'm about to make you regret those words. And I pull that song out. So yeah, of course, doing songs from that. My favorites though, if they will have it, are like the songs from Six. I've been obsessed with Six, the musical, since it first showed on the West End for the Fringe Festival. And so now that it's like actually like really popular, it makes me really happy. And I saw it in London when I was there last year. It was amazing. Oh my god!
That's awesome. Lucky. I want to see Six. I love I love musicals too, but like I can't thanks to my mom, I will say. So shout out to my mom on that. But it's weird. I have never seen Rent. I've never seen Wicked. So I'm actually looking forward to checking out the movie. Yeah, I have seen Into the Woods. Into the Woods.
That's all that matters because that's actually a really good one.
Okay.
Because it's funny because my favorite musical is Sweeney Todd, but
nice.
Nobody usually has those songs in karaoke.
Well, yeah, I wonder why.
I like them.
They're good songs. I agree, but I mean, it's like given the effect of what Sweeney Todd's talking about. Yeah. Have you seen the new Matilda musical on Netflix?
Yes, I did.
Isn't that crazy?
Those kids are so talented.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because usually when you see a movie, a musical movie adaptation from a play version of it, it's usually not as good. But I kind of will say that I've seen the play with a friend, and I've seen the musical with a friend, and I've seen the movie, and I'm like, I think I like the movie more, a lot more, because choreography, ooh.
It's really good. Oh God, those children are so talented.
Definitely. Oh yeah. Now the excuse me, and what are I was like you were saying the musicals. Like, what are some of your favorite musicals?
Sweeney Todd is my favorite musical of all time. I really do enjoy Into the Woods like crazy. It's not a musical, but I'm going to mention it. The play Noises Off is one of my favorite plays of all time, and also one of my favorite movies, which the movie has Michael Caine in it and Carol Burnett, which I love Carol Burnett. Oh my god! And so many other Christopher Reeves is in it. So honestly, I believe if you're an actor, you need to watch Noises Off. Or if you want to be an actor, watch Noises Off, so you can say, I'm not going to be one of those actors, which, spoiler alert, you're going to turn into one of those actors whether you like it or not, because I'm Carol Burnett. Like, her character in that, I'm like, that's me, and I feel embarrassed.
What's it about? I've never heard of that one.
Oh my god, it's so good. And the funny thing is that I told my boyfriend, because he's a sound engineer, I was like, you need to watch Noises Off because you worked with every one of these actors. And sure enough, he watches it and he's like, oh no, I have, and I hate it. it's a great play. I actually think that the movie is better than the play because you get more information in the movie than you do in the play. But the play is also amazing.
Oh my God. So like I'm looking at the movie, it's like John Ritter, Carol Burnett, Christopher Reeve. Wow, they had some names.
The cast is so stacked. Also of course 6 I'm obsessed with right now. So Sweeney Todd in the Woods 6. I've been in love with. I want to I love Cats because it's bad. The musical of Cats. My mom loves Andrew Lloyd Webber. I don't think he's that great.
Thank you.
My personal opinion. But that being said, I think the music he writes is lovely. I think the plays as a whole are a mess.
Okay, I'm sorry. You brought up this topic because like I have always said this to all my folks that I think Andrew Lloyd Webber has always been overrated. But like, and don't get me wrong, he's good, but he's not like
talented.
Yeah, he's not like, oh my God.
That, like at some point while he's writing his plays, like because the music sounds beautiful, does it make sense? Not necessarily, but that's fine. Not a lot of musical songs make sense. We can get away with that. The entire story plot line at some point in every single one of his musicals, I feel lose the plot at some point, and I'm just kind of like, where are you going?
That's exactly. Well, Cats is like
was
like so. It's like like just the concept of Cats is just weird.
Why I love Cats is because I feel like that was the one time that Andrew Lloyd Webber was like, you know what? I'm doing a whole bunch of LSD. This makes sense.
It's like, oh my God. He's like, hey, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I have to put it on a plane like next week. I don't know, but
I'm
so
gonna
just
make
looking
all
at
of
everything.
these poems from T.S. Eliot and somehow make a plot line.
Unbelievable. The only one that I would say he was very consistent on was Phantom of the Opera, and then
that's why I think it's kind of his most famous one was because that one, like. Technically speaking, the plot line for Phantom is the only one that kind of stays on a linear path.
The closest.
And yet, funny enough, I actually hate Phantom of the Opera the most.
I do. I do too.
The music is gorgeous, and I will gladly sing the music from Phantom of the Opera. I love the music from it, but the story makes me sad in so many ways.
Yeah,
I'm like, ooh, this is problematic. And I pointed out that it was problematic when I was 7 and my mom didn't listen to me until actually I got a call from her recently where I was like, you know, when you were 7, and I was like, yes, I know exactly the moment you're talking about, and I know you're about to say that I was right.
You don't hold a grudge at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm working on it with my therapist. If you can tell, I've not made any progress.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, Cats is the only one. Not Cats. I'm sorry. Phantom was the only one that I could tolerate. It's definitely not my favorites on my tops, but I would say. Oh, I'm sorry.
The thing is that Cats is my favorite because it's so stupid.
Oh no.
You know. Again, I just imagine Andrew Lloyd Webber taking a whole bunch of LSD and was like, you want to know what would make a great musical? Let's take all of these poems from T.S. Eliot, including the racist ones.
Oh, no, yes.
And put it in a show. And the thing is that, I'm like, you know what? Cats, the singing, amazing. Dancing, amazing. Costuming, amazing. That's where it stops.
You're so right. I totally love that you got.
And I love that because, and here's the thing: for people that say, "Oh no, I truly love Cats," I think it's a wonderful. You're lying to yourself.
That's like saying my favorite musical is Spider-Man Into the Dark. Yeah, I'm good.
Which, you know what? I would gladly watch that show for the same reason everybody else did, because it was terrible.
It's just a giant dumpster fire. I love the fact that you said that it was that Phantom had a sad story, but your favorite is Sweeney Todd, where there was literally hundreds of people that he killed.
Well, here's the reason why. Sweeney Todd is not pretending to be a good guy.
Yeah, that is true.
Sweeney Todd is a musical that is it's about bad people in general. because yeah, we can sympathize with Sweeney about like, oh yeah, that sucks. You were taken away and like put imprisoned for years, and now you're coming back and wanting revenge. He's a bad person. He got turned into a bad person. And then you kind of see the same, like the show itself is about cycles and how you know that whole thing about how like you live long enough to see yourself turn into the bad guy?
Yes.
We like to see ourselves as victims all the time, but at the same time, if you don't do therapy, you run the risk of turning into the bad guy because you were a victim.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the biggest moral of the story is that like you turn into your worst nightmare if you don't work on yourself and look inwardly and like actually like because what he went through is unacceptable, but then what he ends up doing is also unacceptable.
Yeah, that's true. But he didn't.
And that's why I love the show.
Yeah, that would hurt. That one really hurt though when you found like near the end and stuff. So I mean, he needed his comeuppance.
It creates a moral to the story of like Sweeney Todd became what he hated.
Mm-hmm.
And that the cycle, you can almost see the cycle starting with Joanna and how she's mistreated, and how with Joanna and Jonathan, how hopefully like the whole show kind of ends on a happy note because Joanna and Jonathan end up going off together, and the hope is that they won't repeat the cycle.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true. Did you like the movie adaptation of it?
No. We don't talk about that.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. All right, and I also like I heard that you mentioned this earlier, but like I heard that the showrunners of Glee wanted you on the show, but there was some crazy like red tape and stuff you had to deal with. Like, what happened?
So I am on Glee. I'm a co-star on Glee, but you only see me on screen for one line, and then it's very weird, but if you watch the rest of that scene, at the end, the Glee kids are leaving the room, and then you hear the classroom yelling at them, but it's all me. If you listen closely enough, it's literally just me overlapped on top of each other, because what they had me do was they had me improv while they were leaving, but they only had me do it, and then they just overlapped it all and made it sound like a big classroom. But it's really weird because it's just a classroom full of me at that point. It's
different octaves of Corina.
Yeah, and it's so weird because I'm like, you literally, and this is the funny thing, that's actually where I met Damien Haas, which he's on Smosh.
Oh, wow.
Damien Haas is sitting right next to me. Also, fun fact, I learned this recently. Damien Haas apparently thought I hated him for 10 years. That's not what happened. I was trying to flirt with him the entire time. I'm just really bad at flirting, so I came off as a jerk because I'm autistic and stupid.
Oh no.
We've reconciled since then. Me and Damien are now friends. I just think it's really funny how this all like happened. But like I'm like, but you didn't have like any of it. Like Damien had a line, there was another girl and another guy that had a line, and you didn't have any of them also say lines while they were leaving. Just me while they were leaving. But I remember at one point, I think it was one of the writers. I'm not entirely sure. Because I don't remember. It was like over 10 years ago that this happened. But I do remember them coming up to me and they were like, because I had been auditioning for Glee since day one before it like even was on air. And I kept on getting callbacks and getting asked to audition over and over and over again. And so finally, season 2, Christmas episode, I get cast, and it's just one line that's on screen, and then the rest me improving stuff. And they came up to me and they were like, we just wanted to tell you that we've loved you since your first audition. And I was like, oh. And they were like, we wanted you to have a bigger role. And I was like, oh, and then they were like, the only problem is that the producers thought you looked too much like the guidance counselor.
What?
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. The guidance counselor has red hair like me. We both have really big eyes, and we both are pale with freckles.
Both loud as hell.
So
Both
you're
very
telling
loud and high pitched too. We're both very high pitched as well.
So you're telling me that they couldn't do any kind of change maybe to a little bit to change it a little bit to change it off to
Dye
so
my
they could
hair or
say
anything.
yeah.
They were like and I don't blame them, because if you really do look at both of us, we kind of do look like we could be related. Because our there's facial structure things that are even similar, and it was just really funny because they were like, yeah, we tried to get you on the show, we tried to give you a bigger role, and then it turned into basically them convincing the producers that if I only had one line that was on screen, that it would be fine.
Wow, and how long did it take them to agree to that? Like it wasn't an immediate.
Well, it didn't take that long, because at least I'm in the second season.
Oh, okay.
So, second season Christmas episode, that's what it was.
I think they would have been better off not telling you that, to say, oh, you were so close to get on.
I was like, I understand you're saying this to me because you think that you want to make it known that you think I'm really good at what I do or whatever, but this actually hurts a lot.
It does. They're literally saying that they didn't make you get on it because of how you looked. And that's just, that's terrible.
And they were like, and we know you sing so good and all that stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, maybe it's a good thing, because then, maybe certain cast members might have gotten jealous, because they have a history of getting jealous at other cast members for being good singers too.
Oh yeah, and I am not opening that Pandora's box again. So yes, I definitely know that. And but ever since then though, I mean, you play Paimon, one of the most popular characters in Genshin Impact. Even though I know, even though you're she's a side character, the role feels like you have literally the most lines any character has in the game. It is? Is it official?
That's just true. That's just fact. I think it's over 20,000 lines now.
Oh my god.
That she has in the game. We lost count.
At that point, it's okay, she's first. She has to be number one. But what was your initial reaction coming into a role like that? That's pretty cool.
So when you first book a role, especially at the time, Hoyoverse, MiHoYo at the time, but Hoyoverse only had Honkai Impact. I'd never heard of that game, never played it. So when I got Genshin, I had no idea really what it was, except for a Chinese mobile game. That's what I was told, and I didn't even know. I remember recording for it for 3 months and then being told, okay, you're done. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And this was at the end of 1.1. So at this point, we had just fought Dvalin, and then we talked to Venti, and he doesn't have his gnosis anymore. And I was like, we're done? That's a weird ending. Did we even save the sibling? What's going on here? And I was like, whatever, I'm sure it will make sense when it's all put together, but I'm done with this game. And then I get called in, and I remember this because it specifically did say pickups on my email. And then it said 4 hours, and I was like, 4 hours of pickups? Did I screw up that bad? Or they must have lost some stuff. Or maybe they forgot. Oh, maybe this is the end. They just completely forgot part of the script, and this is the part where we save the sibling. Okay, cool. I go in, and I'm like, all right, guys, let's do these pickups. And the director, Chris Fiella, was like, pickups? And I was like, yeah, that's what it says on my phone. And he's like, we're on to 1.2. And I was like, what do you mean 1.2? And he was like, God. We're moving on to the next section. And I was like, I'm sorry, what do you mean next section? We recorded a whole video game and we're done. This is the end. And he's like, no, you're going to be doing this for at least 5 more years, my dude. And I was like, what?
Oh, man. Wait a minute.
It's also funny because, I had a moment, and before this happened, I was at Brianna Knickerbocker's house, who ended up being in Genshin later on, but at the time she wasn't. And it was Halloween, because Brianna, if you don't know this about Brianna Knickerbocker, it's perfect that she's Hu Tao, because she loves Halloween. And Hu Tao has all the Halloween aesthetic. And so she was having a Halloween party, and Zach Aguilar was at this party, and we were talking about Genshin. And mind you, I also did not know that I knew that he was the Traveler or one of the Travelers, because at the time I also did not know Sarah Miller Cruz yet. I was like, yeah, man, I'm recording a lot for that game. You must also be recording a lot too. And he goes, what? And I was like, well, your character says, I mean, not as much as my character, but your character says that my character responds to you all the time. And he's like, I don't record those lines.
What?
And so it was that slow realization of, oh no, Zach is another silent protagonist.
Another. He played another one?
At the time he was Byleth in Three Houses. And that's a silent protagonist, you know, because everybody else says a lot of stuff and you just click whatever Byleth responds with. But he doesn't actually say those lines. So it's a silent protagonist.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, he was like, do you have like that many lines? And I'm like, dude, I talk so freaking much. And he was like, well, good. Zach being Zach, he's like, well, good for you. I'm glad, because honestly, I'm like, he was recording Demon Slayer at the time, and you know, a few other things. And so he was like, honestly, I'm kind of okay with the fact that I'm another silent protagonist, because Demon Slayer is taking most of my time right now. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm glad that that's the case. Because yeah, I talk a lot and it's nonstop. And, you know, so we kind of poke fun here and there about how much Zach doesn't talk in the game, yet he's the lead. Like, what was it? I think with the, when Sumeru finally dropped, you actually hear the Traveler talk for the first time in forever. So he tweeted out, did you see that I got more lines? And then I responded to him and I was like, did you see that I got more lines too?
Oh no.
Zach's like a little brother to me. I've known him for almost 10 years now. So like we constantly poke fun at each other like that. And
nice.
But yeah, it's kind of crazy, because like I knew that I was the character that explained everything, which honestly is harder than being the character that does all the action, only because the action is kind of like really fun and exciting, and it's not hard to make it fun and exciting, versus the character that has to explain everything can get real tedious. I mean, heck, there are times when I look at the lines, and not to say like the writers are doing the best they can, but I will look at the lines myself and I'll be like, can we reword this so that it's not so wordy? Because like, and thank God Hoyoverse is so cool, and they're so cool to work with, because they honestly, but not that they go with my opinion. They obviously make the final decision at the end of the day. So they don't always go with my opinion, but they listen to my opinion, and they do take it into consideration, because they also know that I'm a gamer and I actually do play the game. And I will sit there and listen to it come back, and I really want the game to be as enjoyable as possible. And there's no way to get around the fact that this stuff does need to be explained. And sometimes it is very long and winded and stuff like that. But if there's anything that I can do with my perspective of being like, I think we can condense this so that way it's not a big long paragraph and still gets the point across without making the audience, you know, bored.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, you're saying like, I mean, well, what version of Genshin Impact is currently out now? Like, what do you know, or?
I don't even know. It's like 3.2,
like
3. I don't know.
Okay. Well, no, that's okay. I just wanted to know, because like my point on that was like, if it's been several different versions and you're still doing, I mean, they said that the length was going to be about 5 years for you to, you know, to be this voice.
They extended it since then, but because of how popular it got, they all of a sudden came out and said, JK, we're not doing 5 years anymore, we're doing 10 years.
Oh my
God.
God.
Got that announcement when everybody else did. So like the minute that article came out that said we're actually going to extend this for 10 years, that was when all of the actors found out too.
Oh,
and
wow.
we all
messaged
each other, and we're like, we're going to be doing this for 10 years.
consistent work, I guess. But I guess the big thing is like are they expecting you to be doing that tutorial for that long when they do these new expansions and stuff, or are they just not going to be maybe put you more into a storybook role, like story role of what's currently happening in the world of Genshin a little bit, so you don't have to be explaining yourself as much as you did initially?
Right, and I think that's why they do take my opinion on this so seriously, is because, again, I played the game myself, and I come from the point of view of a gamer, and again, there, you have to explain these things, but if we can explain them in a way that's simpler and easier to understand, again, Hoyoverse has been amazing to work with, because not every client takes what you have to say as an actor, and they don't have to, mind you. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, well, other clients are bad because they don't do this. That's not the case. They have their vision for their game, and they are entitled to it. Mm-hmm. What I am saying is that when you get a client that is willing to at least take your point of view, it kind of makes me feel more relieved as an actor, because, again, they don't have to take my opinion. They know what the game is going to look like when it's done. I do not. I am coming at it from the point of view of I am sitting here in this booth where I don't see we don't know what's going to be on screen. We don't know. So when a client doesn't take my opinion, I do not take it personally. They know at the end of the day what it's going to look like. Mm-hmm. And even Hoyoverse doesn't take every single opinion that I have. But that being said, they at least take it into consideration where they've had said, you know what, you're right. This doesn't make sense, so let's make it make sense. And then we work together with the script writers to, condense it or simplify it, because here's the thing, we also don't want to take anything away from the character. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of it's a balance of we don't want to take anything away from the character, but at the same time we want to make this so that it's not just explaining all the time what's going on, and then the audience is I'm done.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so it's a balance that you have to play, because the one thing about Paimon, and they've said this from the beginning with me, was that she is annoying and she does talk a lot.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting here as an audience member saying, this seems really wordy, can we condense it? Sometimes Hoyoverse is yes, and sometimes they're no, we really do want to keep the wordiness of this because it fits with Paimon. And I'm you're right. Totally will go with that. But it's just the fact that it's always a discussion where it's even so, I'll be guys, this doesn't make sense. Am I missing some context, or do we need to rewrite this? And sometimes I'm missing some context and it will make more sense when the game is played. And other times they'll go look it over and they'll be you know what, you're right. This actually doesn't make sense. We do need to rewrite this. And again, as an actor, I appreciate being in a booth where I have the freedom to speak up and ask questions. And honestly, I speak up and ask questions no matter who I'm in the booth with. Because if it doesn't make sense to me, it's not going to make sense to the audience.
Right. That's cool. That's fair to say. I totally agree with that. And like you said earlier too, and as everyone knows, Genshin Impact is wildly successful. Won't be surprised until we see the anime of this coming soon here in a bit. But and you do play the game yourself. Who are some of your favorite characters that you like to play, and why?
Oh, that I like to play, or my favorite characters in general? Those are two different answers.
Oh wow, you have two different. Okay, let's say in general. Let's say in general.
I have my favorite characters in Genshin. Uh-huh. And my top 10 are none of them are playable.
What? The NPCs?
Okay, you have to understand. There's so much. Look, people sleep on the NPCs. They really do, because there are some darn good NPCs in the game that are hilarious.
Okay.
First and foremost being Timmy. Timmy is the best character in the game, hands down. Because even to this day, and even me repeating this story of and this isn't even voiced in the game. You just go up to him, you scare his pigeons, you talk to him. And I remember this because I was Twitch streaming it at the time. And my Twitch stream said, go back, pick the other option. And I go, why? And they're like, trust me, go back, pick the other option. And you do. And then he says, but what if they don't come back like Daddy?
Oh my God.
Dead. I was dead. I think I laughed and cried for like a full 10 minutes on stream. And like, don't get me wrong, there's other funny points in the game, but so far nothing has topped that. Nothing has topped that reaction. And I think it's a little bit because two reasons. I didn't know it got that dark.
No kidding.
Because I just voiced Paimon, and Paimon never got that dark. So it threw me through a loop because I was in this game and I was like, and you made that joke?
Oh my goodness.
You made that joke? This is the... And also, another reason was because that's what started me being unhinged when it came to my improv in the booth. Because I was like, if they're willing to put that type of joke in this game, oh, I know exactly what types of jokes I'm allowed to do now. And now there's so much of like jokes that are in there improved by me that would not have been in there had I not seen what Timmy said.
So thanks to Timmy, it motivated you to become darker.
To be a heathen, a freaking heathen. And don't get me, I improv all the time anyway. It just got worse.
Timmy made that gray line a little bit further down. It's like, oh, okay, so this is where we can go with what we're doing right now. Like,
the line is so, oh my God, it's so much further than I thought.
I love that. Okay, so no, I'll give now that one is, I will say that is a good surprise. I love that one, that answer. Jeez.
And then the other one is the second character. Now this is a character in Inazuma, also not voiced. I hope she gets a voice because I both love and hate her at the same time. Like I want to travel the world with her because she's the worst person. And I love her. But it's the woman where you meet her and she's writing a book and she needs you to go and find this mythical instrument to see how it sounds so she can describe it in her book. But when you meet her, she literally says, you don't look like a lead character to me. You look more like an NPC.
Oh my goodness.
And that was the second time I think I've laughed so hard in my life. She didn't say NPC directly, but she basically said that. So I was like, my response was, this B word called me an NPC.
Oh man.
I hate this woman, and at the same time, I respect her so much.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
And then like... this line is voiced, and it's one line, and it's the woman that my third favorite character is the woman who screams cheap and tasty chop suey at you in Liwa.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
I think Chris Fiella told me once who the voice actor was, but I forgot who it was. And whoever it is, she deserves all the awards on the planet because nothing makes me happier than hearing her say cheap and tasty chop suey. And I'm like, you sound exactly like you should. And I love that.
They channeled the right pitch for it.
She put the whole cheap and tasty chopsinessy in that line.
Oh no.
The whole thing.
Like what I would love to see some of the stories. That it sounds like you're having a great time voicing it in Genshin if that's the case. Wow.
So good. She's iconic. She's the most iconic voice. Like again, and this was because it's the line that I think everybody can recognize. Like everybody can recognize Paimon, but that's because Paimon talks the most. She's recognizable off of one line. That's talent.
It's true.
Talent.
Oh my gosh. And
that's why the best.
And you've done also like incredible work in the game series AI Somnium Files, which I really say this is one of the most underrated like kind of mystery kind of games in my opinion. Wish they had some more of a bigger thing. And I feel that game is incredibly, well, like I said, incredibly underrated. Like how was your experience working there too? working for that? Sorry.
Funny enough, I'm in Genshin because of that game.
Oh, really?
So, in the first Ida Somnium Files, you'll notice that a lot of people that are in Genshin are in that cast.
I did not notice that. That's cool.
In the first Ida Somnium Files, I'm in it. Jackie Laster's in it. Zach Aguilar's in it. Erica Harlicker's in it. Allegra Clark's in it. Sean Chiplock. Brad Venable, may he rest in peace, is also in Ida Somnium Files. Then got some NPCs in Genshin as well. They're basically, it's because Chris Fiala was also the director in Ida Somnium Files. When he got hired to be in Genshin, MiHoYo at the time was like, do you know who should audition for these characters? And he was like, because not only does he direct, he also cast some of the characters as well. Especially when it first was happening. He was the casting director when it first started. And he was like, I got you. He literally had, now mind you, some of the people, obviously he has more than just the cast of Ida Somnium Files in it, because there's a lot of characters, and not all of us can voice all these characters. But Zach's now the Traveler. I'm Paimon. Jackie Laster is Xiangling. Erica Harlicker is Fenty. Allegra Clark is Beto. Brad Venable, as I said, got some NPCs in Genshin. Sean Chiplock's D-Luke. So it's because he was like, I want all of these people. I loved working with them on this game. I want them back on this one.
Yeah. Okay.
And now mind you, he doesn't make the final decision. MiHoYo is the client, so they always make the final decision when it comes to casting. Chris basically just narrows it down to his top favorites out of the auditions, and then sends it off to them. So even he doesn't make final decision. But he was rooting for me to be Paimon from the start. And even it's funny because he did this to me, and I told him that this was a jerk move that he did too. I went in for the callback for Paimon, which callbacks rarely happen for
voice
games that are international. So I thought it was really weird that I was being brought in for a callback for this game, because, I'm usually for the dub languages, it's not very often that callbacks happen for the dub version. But they happened. And when I walked in, I saw Chris because I didn't know that he was involved. When you audition at home for the first call, you audition at home. You don't know who's on it. You don't know how you got it. It just comes from your agent, and you're like, okay, cool, I'll audition. And then I get him for the callback, and he's there, and I'm like, oh my God, yay! I didn't know it was you. And he was like, yeah, also, just so you know, you're first choice for this character. And I was like, why would you say that?
No pressure.
What? Nope. You.
Found a way to just kind of sneak that in,
Yeah, it's funny because he said, I knew what I was doing. I knew you'd handle it. And I was like, Chris, I didn't. He's like, you got the character, so clearly you did.
Oh man, that's terrible. Well, that's fun. No, but that's cool though. I mean, it set yourself up for even more opportunities. That's now gotten to a project that's exploded to everyone's imagination where it's at.
Yeah,
so.
And I love Ida Somnium Files so much because I mean, first of all, Ushikoshi, who is the writer of the game, is a freaking genius.
No kidding.
I was in the first game, and while I was streaming it, I was so confused. And yet, talk about a person that really understands you can make things convoluted and still make sense at the same time and all come together. And you have to be really freaking smart to be able to do that. And I am too dumb for that. There's a reason why I'm right. And he really is just such an amazing person. And the crazy thing is that he knows who the English cast is. Usually when you have clients, it's really only the heads of the company that know who you are because they're the ones that picked you, not necessarily the writers, not the game devs. They don't know who the English cast is ever. Ushikoshi knows who we all are. And
have you ever met him?
I've never met him in person, but the first time I realized he actually knew who I was it was an article that he was being interviewed as, and he was talking about the Japanese voice for Mizuki for the first game, saying that like how good she was, and then he says, by the way, you should also listen to it in English. The English actor for Mizuki was phenomenal.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like,
wow.
What? And then he's also like responded to us on Twitter saying, like both me and Jackie responded to us. Heck, he even told Ushikoshi better not flake on this promise because like Jackie was streaming. He watched her stream.
Oh, wow.
He watched her stream the game, and this was when the second one was out. He watched her stream the second one, and then responded to her Twitter saying, "Wait till you see the third one."
What? So you even
and
did
I'm
that?
like, sir, you can't just tweet that. You can't just. What are you doing?
I didn't even know they were making a third one. Oh my gosh!
So hopefully that's real. Hopefully we get a third one. I have high hopes.
Oh no, I definitely do. Those games, like I said, those games are very underrated in my opinion. Like I think if you like those kind of detective noirish kind of feels of what's happening in a weird futuristic way, it's
also like because when I tell people that it's a point and click adventure, they're like, oh well, I don't really play those, and I'm like, play this one. It's not just because I'm in it. You can listen to it, like play it in Japanese. I don't care. It's not about me being in it.
Mm-hmm.
Play this one. Please play I, the Somnium Files, because it is like, and then there's parts that are not a point and click adventure. You know, you play as Aiba in the dream going around, but the story is so good, so well thought out, and so touching in so many ways. And because like the I, the Somnium Files, the name itself for I, it's spelled AI as an artificial intelligence, but also I in Japanese means love, and then I as an eyeball, which is, if you play through the game, you'll understand why that's important. So there's like 3 puns in one, and Ushikoshi is so good at doing puns. So good. They're everywhere in the game. They don't take away from the story. They make sense. They fit with everything. He has the perfect balance of being really dark and soulful and meaningful with being funny. Mm-hmm. He knows how to balance that line very well. And he makes honest stories about people that, and because like one of the things that I believe it was him that said this, that his story is about love, and more than just love that you would get from a sexual partner. It's also about platonic love. It's about familial love. And you definitely see that, like, and I believe it was him that said this, was that the game is about also a found family. And as a person, I'm not from Los Angeles. I'm from Seattle, and I also have a found family here. And I'm, in the LGBTQ community, and luckily I'm in a situation with my family that my mom and my dad did not disown me when I came out. Mm-hmm. They're working on understanding the non-binary thing. They're also they also are working on understanding I'm also intersex, which I had no idea until recently. And most people that are intersex actually don't realize they're intersex until way later in life. Because you truly don't know until you get your genetics tested, really. But the general thing is that I'm lucky that I have parents that, again, did not disown. They're working on understanding it, but they didn't disown me outright. Not everybody in the LGBTQ community has that. So you have to find your own new family for that familial love. And Ushikoshi is like, the whole game is about a found family and what that means for these people. And I think that's a really important story to tell,
I think the way you're describing his story is pretty much is a great way, because I think that's what makes it that's what resonated it for me when I played it. I think that with with the situation that everything was around, the way that he portrayed that story was not only different, but also got a little bit eye opening for as well. Because I that's why I've it kind of like, that's one of the game story that I would remember, that I will always remember when I beat it. So no, you're totally right. I think the way he resonated on it is absolutely like beyond what you normally see in the regular game, especially let alone story-driven
there's
games.
so many people that, like, especially with Mizuki specifically, she has a very strained relationship with her parents. She's living with Date, who is not her family whatsoever, but her family is not really an option. And so it's Mizuki's story is about her coming to terms with the fact that she doesn't really have her parents, but that's not a complete loss because she at least has Date. And I can definitely resonate with that. Again, my parents have always been really supportive of me, and I've been very lucky and privileged in that. Not to say that we haven't had our ups and downs and disagreements, though. And at times when that has happened, I have my family here in Los Angeles. And, it's I like, love comes in so many more forms than just a sexual thing. Love, it really makes it really makes me sad that I'm gonna actually circle this around to men or masculine people for a second, is that, like, they feel like if they say that they love each other, that makes them feminine, or questions their sexuality. And I'm like, you literally don't tell your friends that you love them? That's really sad to me. And it's funny because, like, first of all, this is why gender norms are stupid anyway, because of this specific, it keeps you from the silliest things, like just telling your friend that you love them.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And that and love can be platonic, and platonic love is important in so many relationships, and is healthy, and like, I feel really sad for people that have a problem with saying that word to their friends platonically. But yeah, I think that the game, like, it's a story about love. It's in the name of the game, because again, that name is like 3 times the pun.
That's very much so. I mean, and excuse me, and like, let's close this all off. That last question kind of was more stronger than I thought it was going to be, but it's
the game is really deep.
It is very impacting.
Also played the second one too. It's really great.
No, but the
second one is just as crazy as the first. Also, there's songs in it.
Hey, but you pretty much hit the kind of feelings that game kind of get you to. I mean, but totally agree with what you were saying. But we'll close it off with one last question. And I mean, I see you at conventions, and it's always a delight to see you when you run the panels, because you don't know what to expect when you run these panels, but it's always fun when you do.
Sorry.
No, it's good. But sometimes seeing you play, like, these serious to semi-serious characters like Tatsumaki in One Punch Man is like, it's kind of hard for me, because I'm like, this girl is when you talk, this girl is like completely serious, like, for the most part, like very prideful, very strong. But then I'm like, Corina is not like that, like from what I've always seen, and stuff. So, when you play these kind of characters, like, does it take much for you to kind of get in, that form of what they're want, like, the boastful, like, straight-faced, serious kind of role?
It doesn't, because that was just me in high school.
Oh, really?
I I'm a very small person in real life, and I would say that, like, because when you approach acting, and this is kind of a little acting lesson right here, you're never somebody else. The idea that, like, oh, I get to be somebody else, get that out of your head, because humans are like, I'm autistic, so I'm already bad with empathy. That's kind of like an autistic trait. But humans in general, if you actually go into like psychology, and honestly, also, if you're an actor, take at least some psychology classes, because it really does help. But humans in general are not that good at empathy. We like to think we are, but we're really not that good at it. So instead of always thinking yourself of, I'm playing a different person, I always like to think of it, I am a version of myself in different circumstances. I was brought up differently, or I'm in a different part in my life at this point, but it's still me, and it's always going to be me. Tatsumaki is small, gets made fun of for being small, is actually an adult. I actually experience that on a regular basis. And let me tell you, that anger that she feels when she is undermined because she's a woman, B, small, when in reality she's actually really strong and really smart. I feel the same anger when it happens to me, because it does. Does it happen all the time? No. And at conventions, it definitely doesn't happen, because I'm people know who I am at conventions. But I've definitely been in a place where I have been overlooked because I am non-binary and intersex, but I appear feminine, so therefore people look at me as a woman. And I'm not denying, I understand that. The problem is, and this is why gender is stupid, is that people look down on femininity and womanhood, which is sad because they shouldn't. Both of those things are beautiful and can be strong in its own right. But that's not the way that our society perceives it. And so I look at it as a person who is fed up with being looked down on. And I've been there myself several times. So I expand on that to then bring that out. Tatsumaki is a version of me. It's a version of me when I experience those moments as well. Again, you're never somebody else. You're just a different person you're not a different person. Sorry. You're yourself in different circumstances.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And so Tatsumaki is me reacting the way I would react, and I have reacted in those situations. I've definitely reacted that way when people have underestimated me. I especially react that way. Again, I'm a very sickly person. I have to go to the hospital a lot, and the amount of times that I've dealt with doctors that have tried to talk down to me and regretted that decision right after, it's a lot. Because, being a sickly person with a chronic condition, you have to learn how to advocate for yourself. And I was very also lucky that my mom taught me that too, because she dealt with cancer, and she had to literally lie to get checked for colon cancer. She said her uncle died from it. Her uncle actually died from prostate cancer, but she lied and said colon cancer because they weren't checking her for it, because she was too young, quote unquote, to have that problem. But she knew she had it. Turns out she definitely did. And luckily they caught it early enough that they only had to do surgery to get rid of it.
Nice.
Had they not, colon cancer is a very hard disease to detect. It got Billy last year. Unfortunately, I love Billy Kometz, and the whole industry did. But he was also very young when he got it. And my mom was lucky enough to notice the signs, know what it was, and still tell the doctors, no, you're wrong. I do have this. And turns out she was right. And so far, me as also a sickly person who has gone to the hospital several times, I hate, I've been right almost every time. I was right when I said I had arthritis. I'm a very young person with arthritis. They said that I couldn't have had that. I was in a wheelchair for 2 years because my knees hurt so bad.
Oh my goodness.
Now I'm on medication and I'm not in a wheelchair anymore, but it was because I had arthritis and they wouldn't listen to me. But it took me basically being like, you don't know what you're talking about. And this is the trick for anybody dealing with any chronic illness and a doctor's not listening to you, or just in general, when a doctor's not listening to you and you specifically ask for certain tests, tell them that you want it written down in your file that they're the doctor that said that they refused to give you this test.
Wow.
90% of the time they said, okay, fine. They will say, okay, fine, we'll do the test. And it's because if it's written down that they're the ones that said no, if you're right later on, you can go back and sue them.
Wow. I did not know that. That's actually really good to know. And it like once you find out, like if you find out that you're right, like how, like the doctors, I'm assuming does it pretend that they weren't wrong, or what is it?
How much I'm right. I'm such a jerk. Well, because it's also my health we're talking about. This ain't something like, oh, I was right about a certain rule in D&D, which right. I'm also a jerk about, honestly. But like, you know, when it's my own health, you have to be an advocate for yourself, and sometimes that means you have to be mean.
Yeah. I mean, hell, I mean, it's like you have to. I mean, especially the amount of money that you're paying for these kind of things, anyways, in general, in the form.
Only
like,
to be told that I think you're faking, you're being hysterical, which I always fight back with. You're sexist, I want a different doctor. Immediately.
Yeah, my goodness.
So Tatsumaki is literally that. It's being looked down upon because of certain factors that are against her control, even though she's one of the most powerful people in that show.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, that's definitely well put too. I mean, that's definitely great to know. Oh man, Corina, I don't even know. Like I could literally be talking to you all day about this stuff. It's freaking. You are wonderful. It was wonderful talking to you today. But before we go, is there a if you'd like to plug in any places that folks can see you and or like, you know, follow, like conventions, anything like social media, like where can folks check you out?
Follow my birds on Twitter. It's at the Bird Zulu.
Bird Zulu, nice.
It would have both Zulu and Lima, but at the time I only had Zulu. I now have two. I wasn't planning on that.
You could change. You could change the name.
Can I? I don't even know. Well, I'll try. But for now, it's at the Bird Zulu. And then on Instagram, it's at Corina.Boetger. Boettger. It's spelled weird. I'm German. I'm sorry. And on TikTok, it's at Corina Boetger. I'm gonna start streaming on Twitch at some point again, which will be twitch.tv/Corina Boetger. Yeah, those are where I'm at. Oh, and also my YouTube, which I believe is Corina Boetger VO. But if you just put in Corina Boetger, I come up. So
okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, folks, Corina Boetger, check them out. They are really awesome. Awesome voice actor. But also, folks, if you love this interview with Corina Boetger, you can also check out all the other interviews and stuff that we do on our YouTube channel, and once again on our website, confreaksandgeeks.com. So once again, this is Davis signing out. Y'all take it easy.